The office clock struck 9:05. The CEO's heels echoed sharply across the marble floor. A man in a wrinkled uniform rushed through the door, breathless, holding a small paper bag and a drawing crumpled by tiny hands. "You're late again," the CEO snapped coldly. He apologized quietly, placing the bag on the desk. A lunch that wasn't for him. Hours later, when she learned who it was for, she realized she hadn't just humiliated an employee. She'd mocked a father trying to hold three worlds together. Michael Hart measured his life in minutes. The precious, unforgiving minutes between dropping Lily at daycare and clocking in for his first shift, between finishing one job and racing to the next, between exhaustion and collapse. At 35, he'd become an expert in the mathematics of survival, calculating exactly how little sleep a human body could function on, how many meals he could skip to afford his daughter's asthma medication, how many times he could apologize for being late before losing everything. 3 jobs. Morning delivery driver at 4 a.m., weaving through empty streets while the city still slept. Afternoon janitor at Donovan Tech from 9 to 5, invisible among the engineers and executives who barely noticed him. Night security guard from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m., watching empty buildings while Lily slept at his sister's apartment because he couldn't afford childcare for those hours. Once he'd been an engineer himself, not brilliant, but competent, with a decent salary and a future that looked stable. But then Sarah got sick, and the medical bills came like a tsunami, drowning everything they'd built. The treatments that didn't work, the experimental trials that gave hope before crushing it, the funeral costs that felt obscene when grief already demanded everything. By the time Sarah died, they'd lost the house, the savings, the insurance. Michael had lost his job too, unable to maintain focus while caring for a dying wife and a 4-year-old daughter who kept asking when mommy would feel better. So he rebuilt from nothing, taking whatever work would have him, stringing together minimum wage positions into something that barely resembled survival. Lily never went hungry. That was his line in the sand. She had her medication, her school supplies, her pink backpack with the unicorn patch. She had bedtime stories and goodnight kisses, even if they sometimes came at dawn when Michael finally made it home. She had a father who showed up, even if he showed up exhausted. This particular Tuesday morning started badly. Lily had woken with a cough, not serious but concerning enough that Michael spent 20 minutes checking her breathing, making sure her inhaler was accessible. By the time he reached Donovan Tech, he was 17 minutes late, still wearing his delivery uniform because he hadn't had time to change, clutching a paper bag containing the lunch he'd packed for Lily before realizing she'd left it on the counter. Claire Donovan was waiting in the lobby. She was younger than Michael expected for a CEO, 32, though she carried herself with the authority of someone twice that age. Dark hair pulled back severely, a suit that probably cost more than Michael made in a month, and eyes that assessed him with cold precision. "You're late again," she said, her voice sharp. "This is the 3rd time this month." "I'm sorry, Miss Donovan. My daughter. I don't need excuses. I need reliability." She gestured toward the elevator banks where executives were arriving for their day, impeccably dressed and precisely on time. "Look around. Everyone here manages to respect the schedule. Some people will always stay small because they can't respect time." The words landed like physical blows. Michael felt his face flush, shame mixing with exhaustion and the particular helplessness of knowing she was right. He was unreliable. He couldn't manage his time properly. He was failing. "You're absolutely right," he said quietly. "It won't happen again. I apologize." "Honey," he turned to leave, and as he moved, something fell from his pocket. A small pink hair tie, the elastic kind stretched out from too much use, with a plastic butterfly charm that caught the lobby light. Claire watched it fall, watched Michael bend to retrieve it with careful movements, watched him tuck it back into his pocket like something precious. For just a moment, something flickered in her expression. Not quite regret, but perhaps the beginning of recognition that her words had struck something more vulnerable than intended. But she said nothing, just turned and walked toward her private elevator, leaving Michael alone in the vast lobby. Claire Donovan didn't believe in regret. Regret was hesitation dressed up in retrospect, a waste of energy that could be better spent moving forward. She'd built Donovan Tech by making hard decisions quickly and never looking back, by demanding excellence from everyone, including herself, by refusing to coddle people who couldn't meet her standards. But something about the man with the pink hair tie stayed with her. That evening, after a 17-hour day that included 3 board meetings and a presentation to investors, Claire's assistant realized she'd forgotten her laptop charger. Claire sent her home and went back to retrieve it herself, preferring the quiet of the empty office to the silence of her too large apartment. She found Michael in the break room on the 43rd floor. He was asleep in one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs, his head tilted at an angle that would definitely cause neck pain, still wearing his maintenance uniform. A metal lunchbox sat on his lap, one hand resting protectively over it, and his phone was plugged into the wall charger. Claire stood in the doorway, uncertain. The efficient thing would be to wake him sharply, remind him this was inappropriate, document the incident. But something about the exhaustion written in every line of his body stopped her. She cleared her throat gently. "Excuse me." Michael jerked awake instantly, eyes wide with panic. "Ms. Donovan, I'm so sorry. I just needed a minute before my next shift. I set an alarm, but it must not have." "What's your next shift?" He glanced at his phone. "Security. Starts at 11. I have 45 minutes. He stood quickly, swaying slightly. "I'll go now. This won't happen again." "Enos, sit down," Claire heard herself say. "Please." Michael hesitated, then slowly sat back down. Claire took the chair across from him, suddenly aware that her feet were screaming in protest after a day in heels. "How many jobs do you work?" she asked. 3. Delivery driver in the mornings, here during the day, security at night. When do you sleep? Between 3 and 6 a.m. usually. Sometimes more on weekends when my daughter's with my sister. He said it matter-of-factly, as if this was reasonable rather than a slow form of self-destruction. "The daughter who needs the lunch?" Claire gestured toward the lunchbox. "Lily, she's 6. She left this at home this morning, so I was going to drop it off during my break. But daycare closes at 6, and I couldn't make it." He smiled slightly, exhausted but genuine. "She'll have to eat the backup snacks. She'll survive, but she'll definitely let me know I forgot." Something in Claire's chest twisted unexpectedly. "This is why you were late this morning." "Partly, she had a cough. She has asthma, so I have to be careful. Made sure she was okay before dropping her off, which put me behind schedule. Then I realized she'd forgotten her lunch, came back for it, which made me even later." He met Claire's eyes directly. "You were right, though. I need to manage my time better. I just haven't figured out how yet." "Why 3 jobs?" The question hung between them. Michael was quiet for a moment, fingers tracing the edge of the lunchbox. "My wife died 2 years ago," he said finally. "Cancer. The medical bills took everything. House, savings, my career. I was an engineer before, mechanical design, but I couldn't keep up with the demands while Sarah was sick and after, when Lily needed me present, not just employed. So I found work that's more flexible, even if it means more of it." He paused. "Lily's medication alone is $400 a month. Daycare is another $600. Rent is $1,200 for a 1-bedroom that's safe enough for her to play outside. The math doesn't work with 1 job, barely works with 3. Claire thought about her own apartment, $3,000 a month for a penthouse she rarely spent time in. Thought about her father, who died when she was 12, who'd worked himself to death building a small consulting firm that eventually became the foundation of her empire. She'd inherited his ambition, his work ethic, his intolerance for excuses. But she'd forgotten the why. He'd been building something for family he'd loved more than sleep or comfort. "She's lucky to have you," Claire said quietly. "I'm the lucky one. She's the reason I get up at 4 a.m., the reason I keep going when everything wants to quit." Michael smiled with a depth of feeling that made Claire acutely aware of how rarely she felt anything that genuine. "I promised Sarah I'd make sure Lily never felt poor in love, even if we're poor in money. That's the one promise I can't break." They sat in silence, the break room humming with distant HVAC systems. Claire checked her watch, 10:47. Michael needed to leave. "Go," she said. "Get to your security job, but take tomorrow afternoon off. Paid. Spend it with Lily." "Ms. Donovan, I can't." "You can. Consider it an apology for this morning. I was harsh. You were honest. I was cruel. There's a difference." She stood, gathering her briefcase. "And call me Claire." The next day, Claire found herself paying attention to Michael. She saw him in the lobby during lunch, FaceTiming with Lily, his tired face transforming as his daughter showed him a drawing. She heard him humming while he cleaned, some children's song. She noticed how other employees greeted him warmly, how security guards shared coffee with him, how the front desk staff always smiled when he passed. People liked him, not because he was charming or ambitious, but because he was genuinely kind even when he had every reason not to be. That evening, Claire did something she'd never done. She left coffee on Michael's cleaning cart, good coffee from her private stash, with a note on her personal stationery. For the man who works harder than anyone here. Robert Chen had been with Donovan Tech for 8 years, working his way from junior manager to senior operations director through competence and strategic alliance building. He understood how the game was played. Align yourself with power, eliminate threats, never show weakness. Claire's recent behavior troubled him. She was softening, becoming distracted, showing favoritism to people who didn't deserve it, specifically showing favoritism to the janitor. Robert first noticed during a department meeting when Claire mentioned implementing better work-life balance initiatives and recognizing invisible labor. She'd never cared about such things before. Then he saw the coffee delivery, the paid time off, the way Claire actually smiled when she passed Michael in the hallway. It was inappropriate, distracting, and it needed to stop. Robert began watching. He documented Michael's movements, his break times, his productivity, and he found his ammunition. 3 separate occasions when Michael had been found resting in the break room after hours, technically on company premises outside his assigned shift. Sleeping on duty sounded so much worse than exhausted father taking a break between jobs. Robert compiled his evidence carefully. Photos time-stamped, witness statements, security footage. He presented it to Claire on a Thursday morning during her busiest week, when she'd be most likely to default to harsh efficiency. "I'm sorry to bring this to your attention," Robert said, sliding the folder across her desk with practiced concern. "But we have a liability issue. Multiple instances of sleeping on company property. I've already drafted the termination paperwork for your signature." Claire opened the folder, her face carefully neutral as she reviewed the contents. Robert watched her expression, looking for the flash of anger he expected. Instead, she closed the folder slowly. "Thank you, Robert. I'll handle this personally. I can process the termination if you'd prefer. I said I'll handle it. That's all." Dismissed, Robert left feeling unsettled. He'd expected immediate action, not careful consideration. Michael received the summons at 2 p.m. Report to Claire's office immediately. He knew what it meant. Knew he'd pushed his luck too far, stealing minutes of rest that technically belonged to his employer. He thought about Lily's field trip fee, due Friday, $30 that might as well be $300 given his current bank balance. Thought about how he'd explain losing another job to his sister, who already worried constantly. Thought about the promise he'd made to Sarah. Claire's office was on the 51st floor, all glass and steel and intimidating success. Michael stood in front of her massive desk, still wearing his maintenance uniform, and waited. "You've been sleeping on company property," Claire said without preamble. "Yes, ma'am. Multiple times. After hours, during breaks, in violation of policy." "Yes, ma'am. Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Michael thought about defending himself, about explaining the impossible schedule, the exhaustion. But what was the point? The rules were clear, and he'd broken them. "No, ma'am. If I lose this job, I'll find another. I just need to make it till Friday. My daughter's field trip fee is due, and I promised her she could go." He met Claire's eyes directly, too tired for pride. "After that, I understand if you need me to leave." Claire was quiet for a long moment, then opened her computer, pulling up what looked like performance reviews. "Your cleaning scores are perfect," she said. "Never missed a task, never had a complaint. Multiple commendations from other staff about your helpfulness and positive attitude. You're statistically one of our best maintenance employees. I try to do good work. You do excellent work while running on maybe 4 hours of sleep and holding down 2 other jobs." She closed the laptop. "That's not a defense, Michael. That's evidence of someone being pushed past any reasonable limit. I don't have a choice. Everyone has choices, but yours are all terrible, so calling them choices feels cruel." She stood, walking to the window overlooking the city. Robert wants me to fire you. He's probably right, from a policy standpoint. You broke rules, created liability, demonstrated unreliability. Michael felt his heart sink. I understand. I'm not firing you, Claire continued, turning back. I'm promoting you. Facility supervisor, day shift only, with benefits and a salary that means you can quit your other jobs. And I'm personally funding your enrollment in a part-time engineering certification program because I looked up your background and you shouldn't be cleaning floors when you could be designing systems. Michael stared at her, certain he'd misheard. I don't understand. You will, eventually. Claire opened her desk drawer, pulling out something small, a mechanical pencil, old and well-used, with scratches along the barrel. This was my father's. He built the original version of this company while working 3 jobs, just like you. He died of a heart attack at 47 because he never learned to ask for help. She held out the pencil. For when you start drawing again, engineering drawings, not just cleaning schedules. Michael took the pencil with shaking hands. Why? Because you showed up late and I mocked you for it, and then I learned you'd been up since 4 a.m. making sure your daughter could breathe properly. Because watching you work 3 jobs while studying engineering on your phone during breaks makes me remember why businesses should exist. To make people's lives better, not just generate profit. Claire's voice softened. Because you deserve better than what I gave you, and I'm in a position to fix that. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say thank you. Then go pick up your daughter early today and take her somewhere nice. You're done with all 3 jobs as of right now. New position starts Monday, which gives you a weekend to rest for the first time in 2 years. Michael felt tears threatening, fought them back, and failed completely. Thank you, he whispered. That evening, Claire left work at 6 p.m., something she'd never done. She went home to her empty penthouse, poured wine, and stood at her window looking at city lights. Somewhere out there, Michael was probably telling Lily that everything would be okay now, that Daddy wouldn't be so tired anymore. Claire raised her glass to the invisible father and daughter, and for the first time in years, felt like she'd built something that actually mattered. Michael's first Monday as facility supervisor felt surreal. He woke at 6:30, slept until 6:30, a luxury he'd almost forgotten existed, and had breakfast with Lily. Real breakfast, sitting at their tiny kitchen table, not granola bars eaten while rushing between obligations. She chatted about her weekend, about the field trip he'd been able to attend with her, about how Daddy didn't look so tired anymore. Do you feel different? Lily asked, studying him with the serious expression she got when asking important questions. Yeah, sweetheart. I feel like maybe we're going to be okay. We were always okay, Daddy. We have each other. Michael pulled her into a hug, marveling at 6-year-old wisdom, at how Lily had been carrying the weight of his exhaustion without ever complaining. The new position was challenging in different ways. Michael supervised a team of 8 maintenance workers, managed supply budgets, coordinated with department heads about facility needs. It required skills he thought atrophied: project management, communication, strategic thinking. But they returned faster than expected, muscle memory of the engineer he'd once been. More importantly, it required normal hours. 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, with a full hour for lunch. He picked Lily up from school every day now, helped with homework at their kitchen table instead of trying to stay awake through her bedtime stories. They had weekends together, real weekends, where they went to the park or the library or sometimes just stayed home building elaborate pillow forts. The engineering program Claire funded started 6 weeks later. 2 nights a week, 3 hours per session, working toward a certification that would eventually qualify Michael for entry-level design work. It was challenging, forcing his brain to remember calculus and physics he'd abandoned years ago. But it also felt like coming home, like reconnecting with a part of himself he'd thought permanently lost. The transformation rippled through Donovan Tech unexpectedly. Michael's approach to facility supervision was different. He knew every worker by name, remembered their families, adjusted schedules for childcare needs or medical appointments without being asked. He implemented small efficiencies that saved money while making everyone's jobs easier, and he did it all with the same quiet kindness he'd shown while cleaning. Employees started greeting each other more in the hallways. The break room culture shifted from competitive stress to collaborative support. Productivity actually increased, though hours worked decreased. Claire's executive team asked what had changed, and she simply said, "We hired someone who remembers that companies are made of people, not just profit margins." One Friday afternoon, Lily visited the office for the first time since Michael's promotion. She'd made a paper flower in art class, construction paper petals in rainbow colors, carefully glued around a yellow center, with a pipe cleaner stem wrapped in green tissue. Michael brought her to Claire's office, Lily clutching the flower nervously. "Lily wanted to say thank you," Michael explained, "for helping us." Lily approached Claire's desk with solemn determination. "Dad says you're the boss who listens," she announced, holding out the flower. "This is for you. I made it myself. The stem is a little crooked, but Miss Patricia said it has character." Claire took the flower carefully, touched by the earnest generosity. "It's beautiful. Thank you, Lily. Can I keep it?" "That's why I made it for you. To keep." Claire found a small vase, some promotional item from a corporate event, filled it with water, and placed the paper flower carefully inside. "There. Now everyone who comes to my office will see it." Lily beamed, satisfied, then noticed the mechanical pencil on Claire's desk. "Is that for drawing?" "It is. Your dad uses it for his engineering homework." "Daddy's really smart," Lily said with absolute conviction. "He knows everything about everything." Claire smiled, the first genuine laugh Michael had heard from her. Not the professional chuckle from meetings, but something real and unguarded. "He is very smart, and very lucky to have you." After they left, Claire found herself staring at the paper flower. This absurd gift from a 6-year-old that somehow meant more than any of the expensive things decorating her office. She noticed she was wearing something new, a pink hair tie around her wrist, the one that had fallen from Michael's pocket that first terrible day. She'd found it later, tucked it away, and recently started wearing it as a reminder of her own capacity for cruelty and the importance of catching herself before inflicting it. Over the following months, Michael's influence deepened. He presented a sustainability initiative to the board, a comprehensive plan to reduce energy waste through smarter facility management. It was the same systems thinking that had made him a good engineer, applied to practical problems with immediate impact. The board approved it unanimously, and within 3 months, the company was saving $40,000 annually. The same boardroom where Claire had once humiliated him, now filled with applause for his innovation. Robert Chen submitted his resignation shortly after, taking a position at a competitor. No one was particularly sorry to see him go. The pink hair tie stayed on Claire's wrist, a constant reminder that the sharpest words often cut the deepest, and that power without empathy was just cruelty with a corner office. 6 months into Michael's new role, Claire received an envelope on her desk, hand-delivered, no return address, sealed with careful precision. Inside, a resignation letter. She read it standing at her window, the paper flower from Lily still sitting in its small vase nearby. "Dear Claire, I want you to know how grateful I am for everything you've done for Lily and me. You changed our lives when you didn't have to, gave us opportunities we never thought possible. Because of you, I've been able to rebuild my career and be the father I promised Sarah I'd be. I've been offered a position at Morrison Engineering, a small firm, but doing work I'm passionate about. It's entry level, but it's actually using my degree again, designing systems instead of managing facilities. I think it's time for me to take that step forward. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Thank you for listening when everyone else just saw someone who couldn't respect time." With gratitude, Claire set down the letter, feeling something complicated twist in her chest. Happiness for Michael's opportunity, sadness at losing him, and something else she didn't want to examine too closely. She looked at her watch. 4:30 p.m. Then she did something unprecedented. She left work early. Michael's apartment was in a neighborhood Claire rarely visited, the kind of place where children played on sidewalks and neighbors actually knew each other's names. She found his unit on the 3rd floor and knocked on a door decorated with Lily's artwork. Michael opened it, surprise flickering across his face. "Claire, is everything okay? Can I come in?" He stepped aside, revealing a small but tidy apartment, one bedroom that clearly belonged to Lily, a couch in the living room that probably converted to Michael's bed, and evidence of their life together scattered everywhere. Lily's backpack by the door, Michael's engineering textbooks on the coffee table. drawings covering the refrigerator. Lily appeared from her room, grinning. "Miss Claire, are you here for dinner? Daddy's making spaghetti, but he always makes too much." "I'm here to talk to your dad, sweetie, but thank you." Michael sent Lily back to her room with instructions to finish homework, then gestured for Claire to sit. "You read the letter?" "I did. Congratulations on the Morrison offer. It's a good firm." "It is. I'm excited about the work." Claire noticed he was fixing a leaky faucet, tools spread across the counter, YouTube video paused on his phone. The engineer reduced to janitor, reduced to engineer again, but never losing the practical skills that kept his world functioning. "Stay," Claire said simply. "Claire? Stay. But not as facility supervisor, as our new maintenance systems engineer. I want someone to redesign how we think about our physical infrastructure. Not just maintaining it, but optimizing it, making it smarter and more sustainable. I want you to build the next version of this company. With heart." Michael was quiet, considering. "That's not a real position." "It is now. I'll create it. Better salary than Morrison is offering, more flexibility, and you'd be building something from scratch. Plus, Lily already knows everyone here. She has friends among the staff." Claire paused. "And selfishly, I don't want to lose you. You've changed Donovan Tech in ways I didn't know it needed changing. You've changed me. I need to think about it. Talk to Lily. Of course. Take the weekend. But Michael, whatever you choose, you've already proven something important. That respect isn't earned by titles or degrees or perfect punctuality. It's earned by the love behind each effort." That evening, Lily and Michael discussed the offer over spaghetti. Lily's vote was decisive. "I like your office, Daddy, and Miss Claire needs you. She smiles more when you're there." Monday morning, Michael arrived at Donovan Tech at 8 a.m., not rushing, not exhausted, just ready. He found Claire in the lobby, obviously waiting. "I'm staying," he said simply. Her smile was genuine, transforming her face. "Good. I have 17 projects that need your particular kind of thinking." Lily visited every Friday after that, became a fixture in the office. The little girl who reminded everyone why they actually came to work. She'd run through the lobby calling for her dad, and employees would smile, remembering their own children or the children they hoped to have someday. Claire watched one such Friday from the mezzanine, the pink hair tie still on her wrist, the paper flower still on her desk, and thought about the morning she'd mocked a man for being late, thought about how close she'd come to missing this, to missing Michael's quiet revolution, Lily's joy, the reminder that success meant nothing if you sacrificed humanity to achieve it. Morning sunlight filled the lobby, turning everything golden. Michael knelt to hug his daughter, and they walked together toward his office, toward the life they'd built from broken pieces and impossible odds. The pink hair tie caught the light, and Claire touched it gently, remembering what she'd learned. That the people you dismiss might be exactly the ones who save you. That strength sometimes looks like exhaustion carried with grace. That respect is earned not through power, but through the love that keeps us showing up even when everything hurts. 3 worlds, delivery driver, janitor, security guard, collapsed into one. A father who'd held them together through will and love, and a CEO who'd learned to see past titles to the human underneath.